Hello and welcome to the Lindamood-Bell Academy virtual open house. What a pleasure it is to have you joining me today. I look forward to answering all of your questions and sharing a little taste of our amazingly unique school environment, the Lindamood-Bell Academy K-12 private school. All right, let's dive in. Here we go. Welcome to Lindamood-Bell Academy. Our goal is to inspire every student with the magic and joy of learning. Learning should be joyful and magical. It's also hard, but there are some times where it doesn't need to be as hard as it is, right? We want to make sure that our students are always feeling that magic and that joy of learning. And all of these faces that you're going to see in the backgrounds of my pictures and my slides, these are all precious learners at Lindamood-Bell Academy. Their joy is effusive, and I can't wait for you to see more. I feel like this is the best school ever, says an LBA student. We have kindergartners, we have high school graduates, and everybody in between. The Lindamood-Bell Academy is a right fit for your student. Our agenda today is to talk a little bit about our unique school. It's based on developing cognition, the skills of cognition, and applying those over to content. We're going to talk about an individual learning plan and personalized instruction for every single student that comes to the doors of Lindamood-Bell and Lindamood-Bell Academy. We're going to talk a bit about curriculum and our dynamic content and components of Lindamood-Bell Academy, and then wrap up with a magical day in the life of a student. Whether your student attends in person or online, and both are options, by the way, is also a mix of in person and online, our school meets students wherever they are. We mean that in the literal physical sense, but we also mean that in the academic sense. You can access Lindamood-Bell Academy across the United States, in different countries around the world, whether you are associated with a brick and mortar learning center or if your student becomes an online learner with us. We meet you wherever you are located. And also, we meet your student academically wherever they are at. And we give them the tools, developing that cognition. You're going to learn a lot about that as we go through this presentation to keep that lifelong journey of learning going. We are a unique school. There is nothing else out there like Lindamood-Bell Academy. We specifically develop cognition and we strengthen literacy, math, and critical thinking skills. All of these are foundational pieces that must be established in order for a student to continue to be a lifelong learner and to be able to apply those skills to content. That's what Lindamood-Bell Academy does. How incredible, says a parent, to have a program that adjusts to your child. This really is a unique and incredible program. I mean, you heard how long I've been with this school and with this company. It's very unique and such a joy and a privilege to be a part of. All right, let's start in and talk about the foundation of our school. The sensory cognitive processing for all learning. There is a theory of cognition. It's called the dual coding theory, and it was presented by Dr. Alan Pavio. And what we realized is that after decades of instructional experience, that experience aligned with Dr. Pavio's general theory of cognition, dual coding theory. And Pavio specifically says dual coding theory proposes that human cognition, right, connections in the brain, utilizes two distinct systems for processing information. There's a verbal system, which is language, and there's a nonverbal system, which is imagery. It is the interplay of these verbal and nonverbal systems that provide information to enhance comprehension, problem solving, critical thinking, and literally all learning outcomes. That is an important thing as we step off into understanding sensory cognitive instruction. So stay with me. That's what we're going into right now. One of our founders, Pat Lindamood, said, the brain can only receive information from our senses, and it is a multisensory organ. So for our brain to process optimally, it needs to be a multisensory experience. That's what we're going to dive into and talk about with these three sensory cognitive functions that underlie all of learning. And it's the interplay of these three sensory cognitive functions that helps a student learn to learn. So let's start with our first one, phonemic awareness. It's abbreviated PA. You're going to see that abbreviation in a few more slides. So lock that in your brain. Picture those letters. It is the ability to perceive the identity, order, and number of sounds, within a word. It focuses on sounds. And this is something that helps students decode words. Absolutely necessary foundational skill. However, it is not the only foundational skill that is necessary for a student to become a successful global reader. Another sensory cognitive function, it might sound lesser known to you, is called symbol imagery. And this is where we take Pavio's dual coding theory of the nonverbal imagery and the verbal language, and we start to see this interplay together. It is the ability to create mental imagery for sounds and letters. See those two sensory systems working within words. This is the part now, and by the way, symbol imagery isn't just for sight word recognition. It is a heavy, strong, fabulous predictor of how well a student can actually decode words as well. And so we want to make sure that when a student is reading, we want them reading fluently, not just sounding out words. Then that fluent reading makes way for this third sensory cognitive process, which is called concept imagery. The whole reason we seek information, it is to make that movie in our head so that that information sticks in there and we get to create an imaged gestalt from oral or written language, whether we're listening to it or whether we're reading it. That language is coming to life in a movie in our brain. Let me talk about this a little bit further. So Nancy Bell, our co-founder and CEO, says the sensory input of imagery is a primary sensory cognitive function. And we've built programs and also our school system around developing that imagery language foundation and then applying that over to every course, to every subject, every hour of every day for our students. So picture this. There's two types of imagery. There are the parts, which are imaging the words. There are the whole, which is imaging that gestalt of the story, right? So symbol imagery is imagery for sounds and letters within a word. It helps us learn to decode. It helps us learn to sound out. It helps us learn to recognize sight words. Concept imagery is, again, the thing that makes information come to life, to pop off the page. This is how you know you love what you just read, or that you pass a test because you can remember the pictures that content made in your brain. So let's do some symbol imagery together, shall we? I'm going to say a word. What letters do you picture for this word? Flip. Can you see that in your mind's eye? What is the third letter you see when I say flip? Did you say an I? If you did, thumbs up to you. What if you change that I to an O? What word do you picture now? If you said flop, you're hanging in there with me. Good job. That is your use of symbol imagery. It's picturing the letters, the order, and the sounds that go with them so that you can say those words. And in order to ensure that symbol imagery is developing in our students, instruction might look like this. What letters do you picture for the word ip? And we see our student Buzz, look at his eyeballs. They're looking up. He's picturing it first in his mind, and then he's going to be able to use that image to say IP, ip. And I bet if we asked Buzz to put an S in the front of that word, even though he's not seeing it all, he could probably say sip. He's got the sounds, he's got the letters, and he's now putting words together. Further, we want to make sure that a student can self-correct, right? You need to know when you've made a mistake. Sometimes we can use context clues for that, but other times we just need to know, oh, that just didn't match. So if we start out, for example, and show our friend Buzz the word spoil, and let's say Buzz pictures it as spoit, and then he says spoit. We can say, oh, love that SP in the beginning, kiddo. When you say spoit, what is the last letter you picture? And does it match? By asking him, does it match? Now he has to decide, holding and comparing his response to what he actually saw, and go, oh, no, spoil. There was an L at the end. Symbol imagery enables the student to quickly compare his response and fix a mistake that he made. My second year at Academy, I'm learning how smart I actually am because now I participate in class discussions, I read aloud, and I learn new material. This change in my brain has made me a better scholar. This student did some symbol imagery work and learned how not only to decode and recognize sight words, but learn how to put those together for fluent reading. And now the student is not afraid to read aloud, and that then better reading allows the student to learn new material. And by the way, how about that vocabulary word scholar? Not just a student, but a scholar, a learner. So now let's do some concept imagery together. What do you picture when I read these sentences? The big black stallion galloped briskly across the green field. Then he jumped over a tall rock wall. Did you make a movie for that in your mind? What kind of animal did you picture? A stallion. Yeah, what do you picture for a stallion? Is it more like a horse, more like a zebra? Right? Okay, so you've got the stallion. What color did you picture for the stallion? You said black. Again, you're hanging with me. Do you see that movie? Do you see where the horse is and what he's doing? That movement, those colors that I mentioned. That's all part of using your concept imagery to create that movie, that imaged gestalt in your mind's eye. So concept imagery, if it is weak, information may seem like it goes in one ear and out the other. How many of us have ever worked with students or had our own child and we've said, okay, this is the third time I've given you these directions or that we've talked about this. Boop, boop. Concept imagery, the ability to make that image, whether it is oral language coming in or written language coming in, allows that student to make a picture of what you are asking, of what they are reading in their mind's eye. If that concept imagery is weak, then students might get parts. You might have gotten the stallion, and maybe you got the leaping over the rock wall, but maybe you missed something happening in between. That's getting the parts. And when we get the parts and not the gestalt, the whole, then what happens is we're lacking information that allows a student to pull out a main idea, to draw conclusions, make inferences, make predictions, and apply other types of logic. And isn't that what school is all about? It's about taking the information they're teaching you and taking it a step further. And you can't do that if you don't have that strong concept imagery. So in order to ensure concept imagery is not only being stimulated, but further developed, we use language like, what did those words make you picture? Did you notice when I said, what do you picture when I read these sentences? That word, picture, image, see, it kind of triggers your brain to go, I've got to make a movie for this right now. What do I picture for that? And you look up, or maybe you close your eye, or maybe you defocus and look off somewhere else, but you're making that movie in your brain. And then we use that image for critical thinking. From what you pictured, why do you believe? From those images, what do you think will happen next? And then the student can go picturing all that information again and go, oh, well, yeah. Like, what do you picture happening next after the horse jumps over the rock wall? Maybe his rider is thrown. Ooh, that's a dangerous way to go. Maybe he continues galloping and gallops through a stream. We don't know. It's a never-ending story, but that's how you're going to use that information to predict and extend. Critical thinking stimulated from that student's concept imagery of the content they're presented with. So this student says, now when my mom asks me a question at home, I can answer her so quickly. I didn't really know a lot before, but now I basically know everything. I'm so smart. I love the confidence that learning to learn makes for our students, that it brings to them. This student did some concept imagery work. And before, at the end of a school day, they would go home and they would not really be able to tell their parent about their day. What did they learn? How did they feel about it? What are they going to do next with it? And this student, now that they got that concept imagery work, can share those things with a parent. And as a parent, isn't that what we want? We want our students to have ownership of that language, of that information, of those tools, and then use it to go forward. So I mentioned before, when we were talking about Dr. Pavio's dual coding theory, that there is an interplay of these component parts. This is how it all links together for that interplay. Word attack, we start with that phonemic awareness. Remember, I told you we were going to see that PA and that SI right there. So phonemic awareness and symbol imagery, knowing the sounds and the letters that go with those sounds, interplaying together, allows us to start developing the ability to decode words. And as they learn to decode, then we get to start with some word recognition, the sight words, because fluid reading is not about sounding out every word. It's about fast, rapid knowledge of what those words are and recognition. So we start filling up that bucket as well. And then as we start developing a sight word base and that good decoding base, then we can come around here and start using contextual reading or language to start developing that student into putting all of those skills into work in unison on the page. And then as they start doing that, we start filling up more and more and adding harder and harder words, lengthier words, etc., with harder and harder reading. But what's the point of all of that? We want our students to be global readers. They're not just reading words to read out words. They're reading words to gain what? Comprehension. It's the whole point of learning is comprehension. And so that's where that concept imagery comes into play of making that gestalt image in your mind's eye. Again, that interplay between imagery, the nonverbal, and language, the verbal, always together to create a global reader and a learner that's going to be able to take this information and extend it. So if we think of it almost as a spectrum or a continuum, you might say, on one side, we have accurate and fluent decoding. Some of our students, that's the only challenge that they have. And so we might do some symbol imagery instruction and really focus on honing these circles in here because they can comprehend just fine, but maybe they can't read it. But on the other side of that continuum, we have comprehension and critical thinking. And there's some students who come to us who only struggle in that area. They can read anything you put in front of them, but they struggle to make that gestalt image. And thus we need to work with some concept imagery with them to help develop that ability. And that's then where we're working on this outside component of developing this and building it up in order for that student to reach their learning potential. And then sometimes we have students who struggle with both sides of the continuum here, and we have to do a little bit of work in both of those component parts. But to become that global reader, to get all of these things working together in unison, we have to make that imagery language connection. We have to develop it, stimulate it, then develop it, and then get that interplay going. So that leads to our ability to provide individualized instruction for success. An individualized learning ability evaluation is step number one. For any student, no matter where they've been, no matter what testing they've done before or what school they've come from, we start with an evaluation. That is the start to our personalized education plan for your student. It is a comprehensive learning ability evaluation that assesses a student's strengths and areas for growth and the gap in between those. Looking at that gap based on the student's age and ability levels and grade level allows us to then create a customized personal instruction plan to maximize your student's learning potential. And we do a lot of professional collaboration as well as parent collaboration. But one of our local elementary principals said, it's like getting a fingerprint of your child's unique profile. And that's very, very true because we're assessing just how your child is doing on these specific measures. It is a 4-hour comprehensive evaluation that includes, but is not limited to, measures that look at word attack and phonemic awareness and symbol imagery and sight words and reading rate and fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, etc. After we get that done, these assessments, by the way, are standardized, and it takes about 1 to 2 days to process those results for you, and then we want to have a consultation with you, which lasts about an hour. And that's our chance to partner with you to talk about our findings. What were those strengths and weaknesses? And what would we as Lindamood-Bell Learning Processes and Lindamood-Bell Academy do to address that? What is our personalized learning plan for your child? That individualized instruction shows itself as one-to-one. That ability to do one-to-one work really drives the learning success of our students. They're not lost in a classroom. They're not lost in a small group. It is hard because that means every interaction, they're responsible for a reaction, a response. And that can be exhausting for students, right? For 4 hours a day, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. However, that is the interaction that stimulates and develops those cognitive processes that then serve as the foundation for a student to move on and develop their reading and their learning abilities. We offer one-to-one teaching so that every child succeeds. Our live online instruction is interactive. So whether you are attending in person or live online, you are working with the same instructors. right? You get these same engaging folks. Listen, we know that online instruction maybe got a little bit of a bad rap during the pandemic, but we were doing online instruction well before the pandemic. We're still doing it. And the most amazing thing about this is our live online instruction achieves the same exceptional results as in-person learning. We've got research on our website. You'll want to go check that out to know that your child can make the same gains when doing an online program versus having to attend in center. Look, if we're not in a learning center, brick and mortar close to you, online, way to go. We can do that. We can absolutely do that. And you're going to get the same results. Applying sensory cognitive processing to content. Now that we're developing and have stimulated that sensory cognitive processing, we want to apply it directly to a student learning content. And in the case of Lindamood-Bell Academy, that content is schoolwork. We bring that imagery language interplay to consciousness. We explicitly apply that processing to all content. It does not matter if it is a foreign language. It doesn't matter if it's science, reading, math, social studies, you name it, we apply it. And we strengthen and develop all of those component parts. Comprehension, following directions, critical thinking, even extending that into the ability to write well, to take notes, to study for tests. So the goal with Lindamood-Bell learning processes and Lindamood-Bell Academy instruction is independence in learning. But you can't just expect a student to get there. And that's where we rewind it back when you think of those four circles that I showed you, that Venn diagram. And we first start by stimulating sensory cognitive processing. We stimulate it and develop it through that interplay of imagery and language. And the more that we do that, and the more that we're saying, what do you picture for? Tell me the letters you see in. Why did you picture this happen? The student is going to learn to monitor what they're picturing. And then from monitoring, they're going to learn how to self-correct. And when you self-correct and you catch a mistake before somebody else can even catch you making the mistake, that's when we get independence in learning. Independence in learning does not guarantee the student is going to be a straight A student. Independent learning means, though, they can tackle homework independently on their own. They can study for tests a little bit independently. Of course, as parents, we always want to ensure that our kids know what they need to know going into school, right? But they can write a rough draft on their own. They don't have to be guided step by step. They can read passages and not have to be guided to correct every mistake because now their brains are doing it because we've gone to that number one level foundation of developing sensory cognitive processing. So when I say we apply that to content, specifically when we apply it to curriculum, we know that this is such a strong method because, again, our students, our parents tell us, Academy's helped me because I know so much more about science, social studies, math, and language arts. I didn't get that at my old school. Well, that's because we didn't get that sensory foundation developed, right, to process information. Now that we've helped that student build that, now the student's going to be able to get that information from any other learning environment that they go to. We offer 2 trusted and proven curricula. Each are recognized for their outstanding results. We partner with N2Y, which will be also known as Everway, and then Edmentum. These courses, or these curricula, offer standards-aligned courses. They align with California state standards, but also our standards are fairly rigorous. And so that means they align with most national standards as well. And I know that I've told you now a couple of times that we are a California-based private school, but we can be accessed, like I told you on one of the first few slides, anywhere in the United States, around the world. We are international and we can be international for your student as well. And we consult with parents and talk to you along the way about your student's success, about progress, about areas where we want to partner with you further for more optimal outcomes. This student says, I love it here because the teachers are caring, the workload is balanced, and the curriculum actually teaches you. The curriculum isn't necessarily the science, the social studies curriculum, but it's our methodology applied to the curriculum that really teaches the student. So a magical day in the life. Here we go. Let's dive into some of the things that create a dynamic school environment. Because I'm going to tell you right now, Lindamood-Bell Academy looks a little bit different than maybe a traditional school might look in some ways because of the nature of our teaching. But we have a host of various activities, of content, of rallies and such that we incorporate into our school day so that our students have a community that they get involved with, that they identify with. This is one of my little kiddos here that I worked with a few years ago during a time we had a readathon, and she's just so happy showing off the bracelet that she made from all of the reading that she tracked and her thermometers and the books she's reading. It was amazing. It was such a cool celebration for her because this girl came to me as a non-reader. Amazing, amazing. So the additional dynamic content as a part of our school, not to mention interactive and really dynamic curriculum that we get to work with, but it also includes things like a science fair. Yes, we run an annual science fair. We host school rallies, both in person at each individual learning center, but also school-wide online so that our students can see that they are a part of a much larger digital community than they just are in their own brick and mortar learning center. We have a yearbook for every single one of our students. It's complimentary. We do spirit weeks. We do career day, multicultural day. We have wacky Wednesdays every single Wednesday for the 180 school days that we have. Dress up, get crazy with it. It's super fun. And it keeps that learning environment ever changing and ever fun so that students, while they're doing the hard work, they still get to participate in some really dynamic activities that also can help them push and learn even further. We also believe in student team building, engagement, and motivation. One of my favorite component parts to this is what we call our Academy Peer Cheers. And while it's important for teachers to acknowledge the work that their students are doing, we find that it's hugely important for student recognition for other students. And so the peer cheer is one student's way to give another student a quick little reward that says, hey, thank you for helping me fill in my notes, or hey, thank you for helping me carry my books to class when I drop them, or something like that. But peers acknowledging each other is such a huge part of creating a compassionate and inclusive environment, a learning environment for our students. And again, all these beautiful faces, they are all students of Lindamood-Bell Academy. We also offer a highly engaging fitness program called Fit to Learn. It is hosted by Dr. Rhonda Beeman. And the purpose is, we all need to move our bodies. Our bodies in motion is what helps our brains continue to learn and grow and stay alert. So by participating in our fitness program, Fit to Learn, at lunchtime every day, complimentary for all of our students, it sharpens afternoon attention, reinforces learning, and also fuels creativity, because bodies in motion affect how that brain processes, and it keeps it firing on all those synapses that we want. We also have a program, I personally absolutely love this one so much, and the next couple pictures are going to show you why it's one of my favorites. Lightning Leaders, it's a program that we offer that helps students learn how to demonstrate values of care and community throughout the school year for themselves, for those around them, and for their school. And it's through showing positivity, acts of kindness, and taking care of their school and their materials. And by doing so, our students, create an environment that is fun, safe, and supportive. It's another way to get that student engagement, that peer-to-peer engagement going. And the reason why I think it's so fun is because very recently I issued a contest, and I said to my students, all right, if you guys can give me 100, if I can get 100 student nominations, student lightning leader nominations for this school year, you guys will get to vote. Do I get to get silly stringed at our last rally, or do I get a pie in the face at our last rally from our mascot, Lightning? Take your guess. Visualize which one you think won. And I'm going to show you in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, they wanted a pie in the face. It is a messy job being the director of a school, but you know what? Whatever it takes to engage these students and to reward them for their engagement, I'm all in. As I told our CEO and author of our programs and co-founder Nancy Bell, I love my job and all of the messiness it entails. Let's face it, education can be hard. It can be messy, especially when you have a pie in your face. But there's nothing I wouldn't do for these students. Because our goal, whatever keeps them going towards that goal, our goal is to empower students with the skills and cognitive tools to learn how to learn. That, for me, when we created Lindamood-Bell Academy a decade ago now, that for me was so powerful to know that our company was creating a school that our students who'd worked so hard developing their sensory cognitive processing now They learned how to learn, but now we could usher them into a seamless school experience to continue applying and honing that ability, those skills. And what that does is it fosters a lifetime of learning and discovery. Now that you've learned to learn, you can learn anywhere you go. Makes me think of Dr. Seuss, oh, the places you'll go. So what do? You get started for a unique learning experience at our wonderful school. You're going to call me. You're going to email me. You are going to sign your student up for an evaluation. These are all the ways that you can contact us. You can certainly call us in the United States or over in the UK by these phone numbers. You can call to schedule a learning ability evaluation either online or at your local learning center to assess your student's strengths and weaknesses. And within a couple of days, we're going to have those results back to you and have an individualized plan ready for you to get going. Admission, we are enrolling for the 25-26 school year currently, but also single semester. If you're not ready for the whole year, single semester enrollments are available. Admission is always rolling. You can visit Lindamood-Bell-Academy.com for more information. Again, my name is Emily Hoffman. I am so grateful that you joined us today to learn just a little bit more about our unique educational environment at Lindamood-Bell Academy. I hope it's been interesting for you. I hope you have questions for us. I hope you reach out and let's get started. Let's create that magical journey for your student. Thank you so much.